to the Design Make Play Show. I'm your host, Zachary Anderson. For those of you tuning in for the very first time, here on Design Make Play, we seek to engage makers through challenges and discussion, to highlight maker projects, and of course, to learn about the STEAM-based curriculum, that's science, technology, engineering, art, and mathematics. If you like anything that you see here today, make sure to check us out at zenmakerlab.com, where we offer a variety of programs and summer camps. And in those summer camps, we're building project kits. And if you're not able to attend one, but you'd still like to make one, of course, you can go to shop.zenmakerlab.com, where we're actually offering a few of those project kits right now. And while you're at that shop, you might as well check out some of our PPE equipment, personal protective equipment. We've got a variety there, from a Pro Air, Pro to Pro Kids, Air, and Air Kids. And there are a variety of face shields there. You can go ahead and check them out at shop.zenmakerlab.com. Now, here on this live stream, we try and make it as interactive as possible. So we'll be posting to Twitter and Instagram with the hashtag DesignMakePlay. So if anywhere in this live stream you have some answers to some of the questions or challenges that we propose to you, you can message us there. So that covers everything that I want to talk about this morning. If you were watching yesterday, you saw that we did a summer giveaway. We announced our summer giveaway that we're doing for the entire summer. And now we have a very special promo video that we're going to show you guys regarding that summer giveaway. So let's go ahead, let's take a look. Let's go ahead and take a look at our very first project here, which is Clancy's Boat. Set sail for Impress. And this one is Jackson's R2-D2. Now this cannon was made by Oscar Hudson's Deluminator. Next up, we've got Daniel's Dice. Check out Oscar's Lantern. Here, let's play some Keaton's Crossy Creek. So that is our summer giveaway, and remember to enter to win some very cool prizes. Make sure to send us your maker projects. So students that are already in the ZMA Academy may be entered to win in our Maker Highlights segment. And if you're not in that, don't worry, you can always submit your maker projects to us via Twitter, Instagram, or email, okay? So you can go ahead and you can submit your maker projects, and they can be a variety of anything that you've seen on the Maker Highlights so far. Of course, we show these Maker Highlights during our Maker Highlights segment just after 9 o'clock. So you can go ahead there if you want to tune in and see what some of the other people have been putting together and making. But that concludes our morning announcements. Let's go ahead and jump right into our segments with it.
Hello and welcome to the Design Make Play Show. I'm Sarah and I'm an illustrator and designer at Zen Maker Lab. And for today's segment, we're going to talk about dynamic staging and how it can really impact and help our storytelling. So let's get started. So what is dynamic staging? To break that down, staging is the positioning of how the characters are in a scene, and the dynamic part is what angle it's at and what perspective the frame is at. So let's take a look into that. So to begin with, dynamic versus flat staging. There is quite a big difference, and we can use them for different reasons. So first, dynamic is really, again, to convey intensity, to make a scene more unexpected and exciting, versus flat is more expected, and it's more of a calm setting when we're communicating a story. And again, we're trying to do this to make the audience feel something and to help story tell. So here are some examples just on the left and the right here. And the right is showing the flat staging, so it can be taken from the side or from the front. Versus dynamic is really like an action shot, and the characters are kind of like either in a fighting pose or doing something very exciting. And at the bottom here is two examples of just showing that, again, flat is expected and dynamic is that there's something going to happen, something's up. So moving on, this is an example of dynamic staging. So, we could have just done this from, showing equal amount of sky and water here, but instead we've done the perspective from like where the fish are and the hands going right into there, and it's really making the piece a lot more interesting, having a new perspective. And again, this is from a video game example, and we're literally like immersed flying with this girl in this video game, and it's all because of the exciting perspective that we have and how dynamic this piece is. And this is some examples from comic books. So on the left here, we have like an action scene where these characters are fighting. And again, this is mostly used for dynamic staging because it makes the comic strip more exciting to watch and also read. And then on the right here, we have also some interesting perspectives of posing and how the comic looks. And then here are some examples again of action shots from above, from behind, and the side. And an interesting thing to know is when we're drawing an illustration, for example, instead of doing it just vertically, if we just slant it sideways, that's actually how we can communicate dynamic staging. So on the right here is an example of that, and it's really showing an action scene happening and coming to life. And this is one more example I have, also showing some interesting perspective of how this comic strip is looking. And again, we don't even have to show that much of what's going on, but it's just interesting perspective and staging. And I still think this falls under dynamic because it's not so flat and expected. And here is some environmental examples we have here. And again, if we're doing an illustration for, let's say, a storm, or it's like an action crazy boat in a big tsunami or waves coming in, we can really use dynamic staging to our advantage to help communicate the adrenaline and how scary the scene is, just by tilting our illustration to the side. And here's an interesting one, but this is using flat staging, which is used by the director Wes Anderson, and he makes a lot of movies using this technique, but he has such a distinct style that it actually really works. So there is definitely a time and place to use flat staging versus dynamic staging. And now I'm just going to show you my own example, and this is a comic strip that I created for school 2 years ago. So in here I've used some flat staging as well as dynamic staging, and I'm just trying to communicate my story as best as possible, and this was kind of like an action thriller that I was doing. And in this one at the bottom, I'm actually doing the perspective from up above in the trees looking down, and I've done some also from the side, from behind, and then I've done another one where it's from the perspective of where the phone's sitting in the car seat. So again, you can have a lot of fun with this and help impact your story by changing the perspective and making it more surprising for the viewer while they're reading it. So the design challenge for today is to take the previous storyboards that we created and to see if we can make them a little more dynamic. So what I mean by dynamic is changing the angle and the perspective of each frame that we created. So really we can do that by simply taking the frame and actually tilting it on its side and making it more intriguing and exciting. Or you can do a shot from above, from below, but even from the front or the side can be impactful too. But just have fun with it, and if you guys need some inspiration, you can look at the last segment. So I hope you guys have fun, and I can't wait to see what you guys do. So ultimately, what I hope you guys took away from this segment is that dynamic staging can really help impact and storytell when we're making comic books, or if we're doing stories or storyboards. It really depends on what you're doing, but just by changing the perspective and the angle of our framing, it can really make an impact, and it can help the audience feel something new and make it more exciting and intriguing. So I hope you guys learned something new from this segment, and I'll see you soon in the next one.
Hello guys, and welcome to this Make segment. I'm your host, Zachary Anderson, and today we're gonna take a look at spot welding. I'm super excited to share this stuff with you guys. So, spot welding, how does it work? Well, it actually uses a couple of very interesting electrical properties. We're also gonna take a look at some of the applications of spot welding and why is it useful. So let's dive into it. First of all, I glove safety. So let's jump right into it. What is a spot welder? Well, lucky enough for you, I brought one in today and I'm excited to share it with you. This guy right here is our spot welder, and I'm super excited to share it with you. There's a couple of fun buttons on here. But first, maybe we should just talk a little bit about what spot welding is and a little bit about how it works. So, inside of here are a couple of heavy-duty capacitors, okay? Now, a capacitor is an element that holds an amount of charge, okay? We store it up sort of like a battery for a short period. Now, this guy right here has some capacitors that actually have a very high voltage, okay? They're high voltage capacitors. Now, voltage is a potential difference between two particles in space with regards to the electric field. Now that might sound kind of complicated, but basically you can think about if I had two pieces of metal floating in the air and I increased the potential difference between these two pieces of metal, eventually it's gonna get so high that it's gonna break down the air, and that's when we see sparks. So essentially that's what this thing is doing. Now, we're not gonna get to a potential so high that we're gonna break down air, hopefully, but we are gonna get to a potential that's strong enough to send an inrush current so hot that it's going to actually melt two pieces of metal together. Now, the reason we use a spot welder over, say, a soldering iron is because we can control exactly how long that pulse of current is. Additionally, we can control the exact points at which that current and that heat is being applied. If we just use something like a soldering iron and we touched it to some piece of metal, that thermodynamic energy is just gonna spread out. With a spot welder, we can actually control exactly where that thermodynamic energy is being transmitted. So first things first, let's turn this thing on. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna turn on just the spot welding bit. There's other buttons for a soldering iron, but we're not gonna be using that. Okay. So the way this works is there's actually these two brass prongs, okay? These two brass prongs, and these are the electrodes that are gonna be doing the actual welding. So when I connect a piece of metal across these two electrodes and apply some pressure, it's gonna flick a switch, and current is gonna run down one and up the other, okay? Down one and up the other. It's gonna pass current between these two electrodes. So, I've got some nickel plated steel here, and I've just got a piece of rubber that I'm holding for the sake of this. But let's go ahead and let's take a look. So I'm gonna turn this current up a little bit, and we'll set it to, I think it's on a single pulse, but let's set it to a 4 pulse. So that means it's gonna pulse it 4 times. And let's see if this trips our power breaker. I'm very curious. Okay, so let's take this guy. We're gonna lift it up. No sparks there. Let's try that again. Oh, there we go. So we could hear it a little bit. There's a little bit of a click. Let's turn this up a little bit. And you're probably gonna hear, this one will probably be a little bit louder. Ooh, did you see that? Smoke's coming off. I don't know if you guys can get a good angle. Let's try that again. Ooh. So you can hear that little gunk, gunk. There you go. So that's the current passing through. And you can see here, it doesn't look like too much really happened, right? Not too much really heated up. But believe it or not, we're actually able to weld two pieces of metal together using this spot welder. So let's go ahead, let's grab two pieces of metal here. And let us try spot welding them together. Now, I don't know if you guys can see this all right. Maybe if I do it like this, maybe that's a little bit better. And let's see. Okay, not quite enough to weld these two together, but that's all right. We can just turn up the current. And let's try that again. Ooh, we got some smoke now. So another important piece is also pressure. Oh, there we go. All right, so it looks like we got some kind of, oh, no, not quite. But you can see we're starting to get some kind of burn marks on the bottom, right? So that's good. Ooh. I'm gonna probably turn this up a little bit higher. A little bit higher, let's do it. Let's turn it up a little more. And I can change the pressure here. And let's maybe turn up the pressure a bit. 3, 2, 1. Ooh, 3, 2, 1. Ooh, 3, 2, 1. Okay. And now I think, let's see. Ooh, look at that, that's promising. So we've actually welded these two pieces of metal together. Look at that. Isn't that fascinating? Isn't that cool? So how does this work? Well, we're passing a large amount of current for a very short period of time between two contact points. Now, current runs along the top and bottom piece of metal. And when it's passing through to each electrode, it's actually heating up quite a lot. This has to do with the equation for power, right? So P equals I times R, right? So each segment of this material has some resistance. And the more current we pass through, the more power we're transferring through this material. Well, eventually we pass so much power that it starts to melt at a particular point. And if you've ever melted together, I don't know, say like two jelly beans or something like this, or two gummy bears, right? That's sort of what we're doing here. We're reaching the melting point at these particular points on this metal, and they're actually bonding together, right? It's kind of like we're forging nickel and steel, but you know, to a lesser degree. So why would we want to do this? Why not just weld something together? Oh, wow, that's really strong. Why not just get my welder out and weld something together? Or my soldering iron. Like I could put solder and my soldering iron between these two and I could solder these together. So one really cool application of spot welding is actually for lithium-ion battery packs. Now you can't just use a soldering iron with a lithium-ion battery because taking a hot element like that to a lithium-ion battery is very dangerous. So rather than do that, we actually use short pulses of high current just to create a little bit of heat and actually bond these batteries together. So that's one application. And for some of the initial battery packs in electric cars, they actually were constructed using some of these spot welders. So that covers our spot welder video for today. I hope you guys had fun. So thank you guys so much for checking out this make segment. We got to see a spot welder in action, very, very cool. And this is just one example of the many kinds of equipment that we've got here at the Zen Maker Lab. Now, I love the Zen Maker Lab for one particular reason, and that is because we get to create all kinds of really cool projects and things that our students have designed in some of the Zen Maker Lab Academy programs. So make sure that you guys check out zenmakerlab.com, Zen Maker Academy, because in those programs, you get to design all kinds of cool stuff, and I get to make it. So I'm really, really excited. Thank you guys so much for checking out this make segment. I'm Zach.
All right, welcome to the Play Space with the Zen Maker Lab Design Make Play show. We're starting our sessions on soccer fundamental movement skills. The first overview we had was all about how fundamental movement skills and physical literacy tie into soccer and soccer development and long-term athlete development. So I'm looking forward to getting going with some dribbling drills, and
Great.
let's have some fun.
Yeah, we're gonna have a great session today. Dribbling is gonna be our focus, so looking forward to it, and you guys will as well. So let's get going. Kids, hopefully you guys are ready, and we're gonna start off with our warm-up. So just watch me. So without the ball to begin with, we're just gonna run through these cones back and forth 3 times. Okay? So fix this one, and more. Finished. Okay, so now we're warmed up. We're going to introduce the soccer ball, which is going to be our challenge. So now we're going to try and move the ball, dribble the ball through these cones. Okay, so what I want you to do is using the inside of your feet to begin with. You're just going to move the ball with the inside of your feet.
Very smooth, coach.
Okay, so 3 times. On your marks, get set, go. Good. So that's the inside. Then we would we're going to progress. And now I just want you to use your weak foot. So a lot of us, our left foot is our weak one. Okay, so with your left foot, you're just gonna move the ball, manipulate the ball in and out of the cones. Left foot only. Left foot only. Okay, ready, set, go. 3 times. Left foot only. Finished. Well, thanks, Greg.
Oh yeah.
That concludes the first part of our dribbling session. We're going to move on to, everyone can go and have a water break, and we'll set up the next drill. We'll start off the drill at the top. The alley, there's a wall here, and there's a wall here. And what you're going to do, again, just to show you without the ball, so you get an idea of what we want you to do, you're going to just run down the alley to one side and kind of ricochet and jog back to the top. Okay, so now we're going to do it with the soccer ball. Okay, so you're going to enter the alley. You're going to come to one side, the ball's going to hit the wall, you're going to ricochet, and practice it that way. So we can, you can vary it up too, so that was just normal dribbling, and now you can use what we used last week. So you have the sole manipulation, and then we can challenge you guys, and we can go backwards down the alley, and you can go as if there's a big lion chasing you, so you can just dribble right down the alley so you don't get eaten up. And you can use your imagination, and I would ask you guys, you know, how would you like to go down the alley? Okay? You like that one?
Yeah, I like it. I thought the back alley one was pretty tough.
Yes, that one is your
going backwards.
Your challenge for sure.
Yeah.
And you do that in the game, where you know you might be going forward and suddenly you encounter a defender. Oh no, so now you're gonna have to move the ball backwards and to get away from the danger.
Great.
So that's why these skills, foot skills and dribbling are very important in your younger years. Okay, kids? Excellent job.
Yeah, and again, I saw lots of great coordination, timing, footwork. You were in good posture. Your knees were nice and bent. Your head was up. You know, looking at the line coming at you and the walls, and I thought you did amazing. So
Yeah,
great
thank
job.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this one, so we've done a couple of technical drills for you guys, and now we're gonna test you in more of a game-like situation. So a skill drill. Okay, so we're gonna set up that right now. Okay, Greg, so we're going to go into the skill session now. It involves two players. So you are going to be the gazelle, okay, and I am the lion, all right? So
Okay.
what I want you to do, again, we'll start out without the ball so you get an idea. We have a gate here and a gate here, okay? So the gazelle is going to try and get through this gate without the lion tagging you, okay?
Is there a soccer ball involved with this drill?
There will be.
Okay, good.
Yeah, so right now we're just going to do it without so you get an idea of the run. So on your marks, get set, go. Wow. Wow. 1 point for you. Well done.
Wow.
Okay, so that was good. You, everyone saw that? Greg used his upper body for some agility and quickness. And now we're going to give you the soccer ball. So now you're the gazelle with the soccer ball.
I mean, it was tough with just no ball, so.
Exactly. So now this is where all that time that you've put in, all those hours of dribbling skills. So I'll go easy on you the first time.
Thank you.
But yeah, you guys do the same as well with your teammates, so that your teammate can have a little bit of success, and that way their confidence is up and they're going to execute perfectly on game day. Okay? So ready, set, go. Oh yes! That's 1 point.
Okay.
Okay, first see if you can get 3, okay?
Okay.
And go. Oh, well done. I'm gonna get you this time. You're not, I'm gonna gobble you up this time.
Okay.
Ready, set, go. Oh yeah.
Oh.
Gotcha. Okay, now we reverse. Now it's my turn to be the gazelle.
Okay.
So pass me the ball and action. Almost killed myself. That's 1 point for you. Ready, set, go. Yes.
Nice.
One more.
You were very gazelle-like there.
Thank you. Ready, set, go. Oh, yes. Done.
Ooh,
Yeah, you got a good workout. So
I like it.
you can set a goal. So either timing it for 2 minutes or first to 5. And that's how you can finish the drill. Okay, so that one.
That's
that one's
a
good
fun
one.
drill.
Yeah, it
Gets
is.
the heart rate up. You know, you're focusing on your defensive play,
Yeah.
and when you have the ball, you're obviously trying to, work on your foot skills and the object control. So I think it's a fun one.
Yeah,
I like
it is.
that one.
And again, the space. It's. Some of you players might think the space is a bit too tight. So just if you have the room, then open it up. If it's in your garden or on your driveway, by all means. But the tighter it is, the more the gazelle will have to control the ball. So you actually will become a better dribbler and ball controller. Okay. So that's pretty much what I had in mind for today's session.
Awesome.
I hope.
And what about next session? What are we looking at for?
Next session, we're going to work on. So we've introduced. We're going to introduce a second player. So passing. So we've done individual dribbling, and the team has other players on it. So we have to be able to use our teammates. So passing the ball is going to be the next skill that is important to learn. Okay? So we're going to do that next time.
All right. That was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed that. Learned a bunch. So what do we got cooking for tomorrow?
Oh yeah, tomorrow we're going to work on passing. So we've worked on our dribbling skills, individual ball control, and moving with the ball into space. But another very important part of the game is to be able to use our teammates. So if I'm standing here and I need to get the ball to you, I should be able to execute proper passing skill. So we're going to work on that tomorrow.
All right, that was fantastic. I'm out of breath. We had a lot of fun. Looking forward to tomorrow. We'll see you there.
Wow, what a fantastic few segments there. So let's go ahead now and jump right into our questions regarding those 3 segments. So I hope you're ready. Now, we'll be posting these questions. In fact, they're already posted to Twitter and Instagram. So you can go ahead, you can go there, you can tweet at ZenMakerLab with the hashtag DesignMakePlay. And you can even just reply to the tweet. However you'd like to submit your answers, you can do so there. So let's go ahead now and take a look at what those 3 questions are. And again, I'm just reading these right off of Twitter. And of course, we got a funny little GIF there. Great, fantastic. All right, so first one is regarding our design segment. What's the difference between dynamic staging and flat staging? What is the difference between dynamic staging and flat staging? So if you know the answer, you can go ahead, you can write it down, type it out, however you'd like to do that. For the make segment, we have what's the main element inside the spot welder called? What's the main element inside the spot welder called? Maybe it's got something to do with the car from Back to the Future, or a special component, the flux something. All right, so next up we've got the play, our play segment, and our question is, how many dribbling drills did Coach Jammer introduce in today's segment? Okay, how many dribbling drills did Coach Jammer introduce in this segment? And I just like to say dribbling drills. That's a fun little a bit of alliteration there for you. Dribbling drills. Try saying that 4 times fast. Do you do dribbling drills? There you go. There's a fun one. Okay, so those are our questions regarding those 3 segments. You can go ahead. You can post your answers, post your replies to us at at the ZenMaker Lab hashtag DesignMakePlay. So that covers the first half of our show, but don't go anywhere because next up we've got an engineering tribute, we've got some maker highlights, and we've got a very exciting interview. So let's go ahead and I'll see you in 2 seconds here. Hello and welcome back. So for today's segment, we've got our engineering tributes. So this is a segment of the show. Sorry. This is a segment of the show where we will be a tribute to engineers and scientists who made a significant contribution to society, either in research, developments, building something very cool, inventing something very cool. And today we will be tributing to Grace Hopper. So we're going to learn a little bit about what she did and a little bit about who she was. So let's go ahead and dive into this tribute to Grace Hopper. So first things first, Grace Hopper is the inventor of the A0 compiler. So for those of you who don't know, a compiler will basically take human language and convert it into machine language that computers understand. So computers are built on the digital logic of ones and zeros, right? True or false. And when we're telling a computer to do something, it's very awkward for us to remember all the instructions in zeros and ones. be very hard for me to say, hey computer, 01101011100 to go ahead and move my mouse around. That doesn't make any sense. So rather than do that, when we're programming things, we like to write things out in nice English language, right? If-else statements. It's almost as if you're talking to somebody. And so that's one significant contribution that Grace Hopper came up with, is she actually invented the A0 compiler, which converted human language into machine language. So it made things a little bit easier for us to understand. Okay, and that was done in 1952. So thank you, Grace, for that amazing compiler. But that's not all you did, is it? No, we also invented Flowmatic language, which was the foundation for COBOL. Now, some of us have no idea what COBOL is, but COBOL was actually a foundational computer programming language that was used all over the place. Okay, it was used in government, it was used in business, all over. And it was based primarily on the Flowmatic language, okay? And so this COBOL was basically used by 80% of businesses in 1997. Okay, 80% of businesses by 1997. So that's pretty significant. And COBOL and some of the other languages like Fortran, these were all leading up to the eventual development of C. I think we had BASIC too, right? But all these languages are basically leading up to C, and then from there sprouting into a variety of other languages. And you know today that we use a variety of different languages like JavaScript, Java, we've got Python, we've got C++, we've got a whole different mix of languages. But these are all based on the fundamental languages that came before. So thank you so much, Grace Hopper, for inventing all these wonderful things that allowed us to interact with computers in a logical and meaningful way, and actually be able to program things in a logical manner. So let's learn a little bit about who Grace was herself. So she actually received a PhD in mathematics from Yale University, and she was also a bit of a tinkerer when she was young. She would often pull apart clocks and things. And actually her mother had to stop buying her clocks. She said, I'm not gonna buy you one more clock because you keep pulling them apart. That's your last one. If you take apart that one, you're not gonna have a clock. But yeah, so she really enjoyed pulling things apart and really understanding how they worked. So if you happen to do that at home, maybe you've got a little bit of Grace Hopper in you, because that was something she liked to do, dismantle things. So that covers our engineering tribute for Grace. Thank you, Grace, so much for what you did. Now we're gonna move into our next segment of the show, and I'm very excited for this segment because this is one of my favorite segments. We have our Maker Highlights, and I'm very excited to bring out our Maker Highlights. Now, all the contestants that you see here today that we are highlighting in our Maker Highlights have been entered to win our summer giveaway that has a variety of very cool prizes, including prizes given to us by the Vancouver Canucks. So we're very, very excited to have that. And of course, if you want to have your project entered in to win some very cool prizes, you can always submit them. If you're not in one of our programs or summer camps already, you can submit them from wherever you are. If you decide to build something on your own this summer, to our Twitter or Instagram or email. So you can go ahead and you can put your submissions there. And if we highlight it here, you've been entered to win. Pretty simple, right? Okay, so let's go ahead and jump into our first project. And this one is Daniel's box. So Daniel was a camper here at Zen, and he put together this box this summer, and I wanted to highlight it here to make sure that he was entered into this thing to win. So let's go ahead and take a look at this box that Daniel put together. It's very, very cool. So Daniel is a big user of Magic the Gathering. He likes the card game, and so he wanted to make this very cool box that he could actually put all his cards into. And so this was actually designed in Tinkercad. Oh, and we still got, it looks like we came back to it. Oh, we redesigned it, but unfortunately, I guess we lost part of it. So that's kind of sad. But you know what? That's okay. You know, sometimes that happens. We go into a model, we change things around, we move them around. We still have a beautiful picture here of Daniel's box. And I want to just talk about the little cuts in the side. So the way this box works is you print out a top and the bottom, and it fits on top. But you see those two little cuts there. I thought those were brilliant, and it's not something that you'd intuitively think of right off the bat. But those little slots are actually for your fingers, so you can actually pull the cards out. So if you fill the deck up all the way, if you fill that box up all the way, you can actually reach in with your fingers and pull out some cards, or just grab them from the side. So I thought that was really a very cool and important feature to that box. It's a very functional feature. So that's why we wanted to give a little shout out to Daniel and his box here. Fantastic work. So let's go ahead now and look at our next project, which is Gabriel's dog tag. So this is a dog tag that Gabriel put together for his librarian, and I thought he did a fantastic job. And we can see the remnants here of one of the copies. So let's go ahead, let's get rid of that. And let's just take a look. Let's focus on this design that Gabriel put together. So his librarian's dog was named Buddy, and he wanted to make this cool tag for his librarian. So I thought that was a really altruistic project approach, and that's why I wanted to highlight it here, is that, you know, this is a project that Gabriel's not doing for himself. He's doing it for someone that he knows, or someone in the community. And so I thought that was very noble and very nice thing to do. So that's why we wanted to highlight it here. And he did a very good job, right? We can see Buddy is very big, very clear. It's actually popped out of the actual surface, right? It's been extruded out of the surface. So if you wanted to paint it later, it's very easy to do so. And we can see there's this little loop here at the top, and that's very important, right? That is so that we can actually fit it onto the dog's collar, right? So we've actually got a little hole that we can run like a string through to attach it to the collar. Yeah, and he did this beautiful bone, and let's go ahead and we can pull apart to see how the bone was actually done. Let's go ahead, we can do that. Ooh. So we can see here we've got these two side pieces that were added on later, and these were actually made, if we take a look, these are actually made just with two circles, right? We can just fit two beautiful circles, one there, and then it looks like there's a box there, right? And that's how we were able to make this side piece for the Buddy bone. And we've also got here, if I go ahead and we split this up, you can see how this was actually cut in to that box, right? So we've got two of these two rectangular prisms here, and one is just slightly tucked into the other, and then when we merge it, it's gonna cut to make that very cool kind of indent, right? Yeah. So yeah, good job, Gabriel, on your Buddy tag. I thought you did a fantastic job, and I liked the idea behind the project, that it was for your librarian, somebody that you knew about in your community who needed something. So very cool. All right, so that is our dog tag. We've got one more here, because why not? We've got a little bit of time. So I wanted to throw in Aiden's rocket. So this is a rocket that Aiden designed, and we want to throw it in here, of course, because he did a fantastic job. Now this was actually a two-stage project. We first did some molding with some clay, and we drew things out, and then we moved into 3D design and Tinkercad. And you can actually see here, we've attached a bridge connector between the rocket and the station to make sure that our astronauts can actually make it from the rocket to the station. And we can go ahead and we can even take a look at this project here. But we can see how the final thing turned out. Very cool. So let's go ahead and let's take a look here. So I appreciate this design for the platform. It's very cool. We've got all these little blocks and things. And so we just wanted to give a shout out to Aiden. Fantastic job. So that covers our maker highlights for this segment. I hope you've enjoyed. Next up, we've got a very exciting interview. So stay tuned.
Early on, we realized that it would inevitably spread to Canada. We had to ask ourselves what we could do to keep our population safe.
My mom is a nurse at Lionsgate Hospital, and her concern is the rapid spread of the virus across the wards, so I decided to create a face shield for her to keep her safe from COVID-19.
And GladSend donated what they could. A lot of hospitals in Canada did not have enough PPE.
At Zen, we're a team of makers with backgrounds in engineering, business, and design. We believe that great ideas are only worth the action taken.
We noticed that these face shields were being made in a way that wasn't environmentally friendly. We thought, wouldn't it be great if we could make one that was recyclable, that was biodegradable, that could protect people, as well as protect the environment.
The power a community has to create health is limitless when we work together.
Good morning, everyone. Today, we have an amazing guest in our show, Design, Make and Play. My name is Carla Vecino. I'm the producer. Today, our Honorable Minister of Environment and Climate Change, Jonathan Wilkinson, who is also represented as a member of the Parliament for North Vancouver, right?
Yep.
Okay, Minister, really, it's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you.
Minister, I have a question. When I was just going through the bio and checking, I saw that you were so good a student. You were to the best universities ever. So could you just tell the audience what was the secret when you were living?
Well, I'm not sure there's any secret. I think the secret to learning of any kind is being interested in what you're learning. And I was very fortunate that there were lots of things that I did at school that I was very interested in. And I think that's the secret to success for anybody. So,
do you know kids? Oh, Minister, can you please tell us why you decided to work in the public sector after working for more than 20 years in the private sector? It was kind of impressive moment.
yeah, I mean, I spent a long time in the private sector and I've only been in politics for 5 years. I still don't refer to myself as a politician. I got into politics mainly because I was concerned about climate change. And I was concerned that the government that was in power before 2015 in my mind, didn't do enough to fight climate change. And so I used to run technology companies that focused on environmental issues and focused on how do you use technology to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. So I decided that I complained a lot about the things I didn't like what the government did. And a friend of mine one time said to me that that's all well and good, but I've heard you say that many times before, and what are you going to do about it? And I decided to run.
That is perfect. A lot of our viewers are kids, youth, and families. What kind of actions do you think that kids and families can do in our community to contribute to protecting the environment?
Well, I mean, there's lots of different elements about protecting the environment. Some of them relate to climate change, some of them relate to plastics and other kinds of waste that we use in our households. Certainly on the climate side, people can make a decision to drive a car that's more fuel efficient or that doesn't emit any carbon at all. They can take more public transit, they can ride their bikes, they can turn down their thermostats so they use less natural gas. They can refit their homes so that they're more energy efficient, so they can reduce the greenhouse gases they generate. There's lots of things they can do. I would say kids can actually help by advocating to their parents and their grandparents about why it's so important that we fight climate change, because they're the ones who are going to inherit this crisis if we don't do something about it. And with respect to waste and plastics, I mean, it's use less plastic and find ways to use other things. Make sure that we're dealing with waste in the right way, where we're recycling some of the products that we use on a regular basis. We're separating the organics so that we can actually reuse the energy that's in them. So there's lots of things you can do at the household level, and then be an advocate. Be an advocate for doing more.
Oh, that's perfect. Could you tell us a secret? Are you going to bike work from home to work? Are you biking?
I bike sometimes, but I also made the decision to acquire a vehicle that doesn't emit. So I drive what's called a fuel cell vehicle. So you put hydrogen in one side and it uses oxygen in the air, and all that comes out the back of the car is water vapor. So there's no carbon whatsoever.
Okay, this one is COVID. With COVID, a lot of small businesses are just focused on survival, right? And what kind of things do you think small businesses can still do make sure to protecting the environment isn't forgotten amidst the crisis?
Yeah, I mean, it certainly has been a very challenging time for businesses. It's been a very challenging time for individuals and families, for sure. And there are many small businesses that certainly are struggling to survive. And of course, that's something that they have to be focused on before they focus on anything else. But there are lots of things that businesses can do, even in the current context, that actually don't cost money, that save money. Things like making sure that you're using energy wisely and reducing the amount of energy you use by turning down the thermostat or a range of those kinds of things. About the kind of purchases that you make, where you're purchasing products that don't use a lot of plastic and those kinds of things. So I think there's lots of things that businesses can do, and I actually think that it's increasingly important that businesses are a voice for sustainability, that they actually are saying, these are important things for us to do for the future of the planet, and they're things that we can do that actually don't cost a lot of money. I actually had a meeting, these are not small businesses, but I had a meeting about a month ago with many of the larger producers and users of plastic products who are actually advocating for a zero plastic society. Those are people like Canadian Tire and Walmart and Coca-Cola. So I think increasingly businesses are understanding that acting in sustainable ways actually can be good for business.
That's perfect. About environment. Well, recently we found an article on BCC. It was posted on July 20th, more or less, and it says that globally we are using more than 100 billion face masks and 65 billion plastic gloves every month. So what is the government doing to ensure that the COVID crisis is not going to increase the landfill and contaminate the oceans and increase that contamination?
Yeah, it's a big emerging problem, and it's not just a big emerging problem in Canada. I talked to my counterparts in many European countries, and they say the same thing, that there's an increasing amount of waste that's ending up in our natural environment that comes from medical equipment, medical PPE. And so we need to do some things to address that. There are probably two different routes you can go. One is finding ways to ensure that the waste ends up in the waste streams where it gets disposed of properly and not in our waterways and on our land. But the other is probably more interesting. It's about finding ways to use substitutes for plastics and other things that are biodegradable. Actually, I saw some of the products here that actually are made by materials that are biodegradable. This is something that is an increasing issue. I actually am meeting with all of my provincial counterparts next week, and that is something that we put on the agenda just a couple of weeks ago, is we need to actually work together, the provinces and the federal government and the territories, to come up with solutions for this problem before it becomes a bigger problem, and it will if we don't do something about it.
Yeah. This one is about supply chain. With the COVID-19 crisis, we learned how fragile the global supply chain is, right? And does the government have a strategy to improve the local sourcing of important items so this situation doesn't occur again?
Yeah, I mean, I think it has exposed a bunch of broad issues about supply chains, but I think the most important ones are supply chains relating to medical equipment and supply chains relating to food. And I think that there's some really important lessons that we're going to have to take away from this crisis as to how we think about what we're doing in some of these really critical spaces going forward. With respect to medical equipment, there's already a lot of progress that's been made. So the government has made significant commitments to companies that have actually switched their equipment over to producing medical equipment. Some of that is in a place like this, but Arc'teryx here on the North Shore is doing the same thing. And about half of all of the PPE we buy right now is Canadian made. At the beginning of this, it was a tiny fraction of that. And certainly going forward, I think it will be very important that we retain that capacity.
Good to know. You are really active on social media. I really follow you. I've seen all different small businesses that you have been visiting through time. Would you like to highlight any of those initiatives that you have in there? And really interesting, and they're really large.
So, we use social media channels for a number of different things. One of the most important over the last few months has been highlighting a lot of the programs that have been put into place to help families and to help businesses, so that people were really aware of what kind of support could be available to them to help them to get through this crisis. But we also use it to highlight success stories in the riding, interesting stories of people in the riding, and also to highlight some of the things that the government's doing. I mean, I am the Member of Parliament for North Vancouver first and foremost, and part of it's about telling stories to people who live in the riding about what goes on in the riding. I'm also the Minister of Environment and Climate Change, and so I also use the social media channels to try to communicate the importance of the issues around climate change and broader sustainability issues to ensure that people have information on which to make informed choices and decisions.
That's perfect. Would you like just to send a message to all families, kids who are watching now the show and telling how they can engage with the environment and get moving forward with those initiatives that maybe the government or the small communities are having around?
Well, there's lots of different ways, and people are always coming up with new and creative ways to engage. I actually, later tonight, I'm doing a session which is called For the Kids. And it's a group of parents in North Vancouver who have actually arranged for a town hall, which is to talk about the future of the planet and the future of climate change. And it's both kids and their parents actually coming together to advocate. So there's vehicles that people come up with themselves. Within the schools, most of the schools have green teams now that actually work on environmental issues. There are shoreline cleanups. But I would say, especially with respect to kids, I never say no to going to an elementary or high school. If they ask, I go and have a conversation. I always find it very interesting to talk to young people about their perspective on the world. And I will tell you that young people as a group are far more concerned about environmental issues and particularly about climate change than older people. And that's because I think they recognize that they are the ones who are going to inherit what could be a terrible mess if we don't actually take action. And so what I always say to them is, if you really feel that way, then the people you need to convince are people in your network, your parents, your grandparents, your aunts, your uncles, your neighbors, about why it's so important for them to take action for you. And I think that's one of the things that I would say to young people is, be your own advocate in your own community.
So you hear, kids. So thank you very much, Honorable Minister, for being here. Thank you. Really appreciate your time. You know that your agenda is super busy. But thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, everyone. Thank you for being here today. See you next time with more design.
Hello and welcome back. So thanks so much for checking out this segment for today, the whole show. We hope you enjoyed. Remember that you can enter into the Design Make Play summer giveaway by messaging us through Twitter or Instagram or sending us an email with some details or some pictures of your maker project. So that concludes everything. I will see you all tomorrow.